If you had 1 hour with the CEO of an organization that went from top-down command and control to a radically collaborative, continuously innovative way of working, what questions would you want to ask? I'm Julie Heffaker, and I'm with Deeper Funner Change, and we are crazy curious about helping teams and organizations get better results by making the collaborative shift. We asked a room full of organizational leaders, organizational development gurus, and leadership educators what questions they would ask in that hour. And in a few minutes, my team member Karen is going to have 4 15-minute conversations with the former CEO and current Chief Cultural Officer of Tasty Catering, Tom Walter. He's going to answer those questions. Tasty's based in Chicago. It was founded in 1989 by Tom and his 2 brothers, Larry and Kevin. In 2006, Tasty was structured in a traditional top-down way. They were struggling to grow. Company members described the environment as walking on eggshells. People were afraid even to introduce a dissenting point of view. 30% of the staff members at Tasty were non-native English speakers, and formal education levels ranged from 6th grade to college level. Today, Tasty uses a team-based structure, and a representative staff council guides all significant strategic and operational decisions. Tasty is no longer a single business, but a family of businesses, all started by staff, including a food processing company, a gift company with a social purpose, and a creative agency, New Foric, which brings specialized expertise to clients in the catering industry. Their annual profitability is twice the industry average. Turnover, a mere 4%, in an industry that regularly goes north of 50%. Others have noticed their excellence. Inc. magazine and the Wall Street Journal have called them America's best companies to work for. Forbes, one of America's top 25 small companies. The American Psychological Association has designated them as one of America's most psychologically healthy workplaces. And Catering Magazine and many others have honored them with Caterer of the Year. Tasty was generous enough to let us learn from them, and we spent months researching and analyzing their journey by gathering perspectives from people all across the organization. We see a transferable method that other companies can use and build on, and there is nothing as powerful as hearing stories from the front lines of a transformation like this. So now, Karen and Tom, over to you.
So, Tom Walter, it is my privilege to get to engage in a series of interviews with you about this amazing, really, and kind of surprising journey you've been on with Tasty Catering. And when I had the privilege of visiting you in Chicago and stepping into this Tasty Catering amazing place, one of the very first things you did as you showed me around is you took me to the wall right by your desk, and you said to me, Karen, this is the wall where this whole transformation started. And so I'm wondering if you would tell the story of how the whole thing started.
Well, it's an honor to be with you, Karen, and thank you for appreciating us and studying Tasty Catering. But I was more or less a third party in this transformation, and it started on a cold, rainy day. I believe it was a Friday, and a young lady named Jamie Pritchard, 23 years old, and a young man named Tim approached my desk that was divided off by a high wall, and they leaned over the desk and they said, they wanted to talk to me, and I said, what's on your mind? And they said, I believe it was Jamie said, if you don't change, we're leaving. And I looked at them thinking, I wish the door would hit you on the rear end on the way out the door. But I said, change what? And Tim said, we're tired of command and control. We don't want that anymore. And I said, well, what do you want? All I ever understood as a leader was command and control. And they said, we want an employee-generated culture, and we want to live by that culture. And I didn't know what they were talking about. And at the time, I was probably 55, 56 years old, and there was a definite generation difference. So they explained they wanted to buy the book Good to Great, Jim Collins' book, as a main piece of the culture. They wanted it in Spanish and English so everybody in the company could read it. And they wanted the organization to define what our values, our vision, and our mission would be. And I told them, I can't change. I don't know how to change. But I would support them in their quest because my brothers and I were fed up with their behaviors. It couldn't continue. We were underperforming, overstressed. And so that's how the change happened. And then back from the dividing wall is a surface wall that's now filled with trophies for all the things that happened, the consequences of that change. So
let me interrupt you for a sec, because you said you were sick of their behavior. Do you mean like just Tim and Jamie, or are you talking about you were tired of what was going on?
I was tired of my behavior and my brother's behavior. We were very disgusting. We used vulgarity, we screamed, we were abusive verbally, and it was just not the right way to lead a business. And it was getting worse and worse. It was a progressive disease, our behavior. And so they offered a chance for us to change this behavior.
I'm looking at the wall behind you and I'm seeing at the top the road from good to great. So you're saying Jamie and Tim came to you with this offer of good to great, and they were using language like about engagement and we want to change this company. How did they come across good to great? Like,
well, Good to Great was a book that was suggested by one of our consultants at that time. It was a consulting chef. And he said, I think this book would be appropriate for you. And I believe he directed it more to Tim and Jamie than he did to me because I didn't hear it. If he said it, I didn't hear it because I wasn't listening to that at the time. And, but Tim and Jamie said that we had a good company, but we needed to become great. And so because that book it's an iconic book on culture and the way a company should behave, it provided us the blueprint to change. Plus it came in Spanish. 50% of our workforce, Spanish is their primary language. So we were all able to read the same book with the same contextual setting.
now, when you and I met a few weeks ago in Chicago, you talked about this Good to Great, the book, and that there was a template. And you talked about the importance of the counsel that Jim Collins in that book recommends, and that in some ways that was sort of the beginning after the wall incident, this idea of creating good to great councils. Can you explain, like, what did that look like? How did that go? Like, where did you all start?
Well, Tim is a very decisive leader and he's a visionary, but Jamie is a phenomenal communicator. And so a lot of the change, the verbalization of the change, I give credit to Jamie for it. And Jamie painted this picture because she is very good at communication. She said, we're going to create a council with one member from every team. We're going to break down the company into teams instead of divisions or departments or silos run by one brother or the other. I have two brothers who are partners.
How big were you at that time? How big was Tasty then?
Tasty in size of employees was about 70 or so, 60 to 70 employees. We're now over 150. Yeah. And our revenues are more than double what it was at that time. And this change took place in late 2005 and early 2006. But Jamie's vision was, to give Jamie credit, she had read the book, she understood the book before she confronted me with this. And her idea was that the employees would have a voice, there'd be a platform for their voice, and that every team would have a representative that would attend this council, and that critical elements for strategic planning would be given in this, would be sent in an agenda so the teams could discuss what needed to happen and come back into the council and discuss it. So they started with identifying the core values. What are our core values that we're going to be held accountable for? The ones over my shoulder. And I asked if we could select the people from each team, because I didn't really want the most popular. I wanted the one that my wisdom, because I've been in business for 35 plus years. In fact, Tim told me what worked for you for 35 years isn't going to work any longer for us. So I remember clearly it was 35 years. Tim, I said, I want to select the people because if this is going to be my destiny, we're going to relinquish control. I want to give it to the people who, in my wisdom, I believe these people are good, basic people. And so we selected the 9 people, and of the 9 people, 8 of them are still with us full time. One left for a great opportunity with her own family business. So we selected the people. But then as this started and they came in for the core values, I said to Jamie, can I come into this meeting, my brothers and I? And Jamie said, yes, you can come in, but you don't have a place at the table. You have to sit in the corner because this is by the employees for the employees. Tim piped up and he said, if they create it, they'll follow it. So Jamie said, if you have a question, you can raise your hand, but don't raise your hand because we're not going to call on you for the first couple of meetings. She clearly wanted it to be for the employees. And that's how the Good to Great Council started. And we still have the same council, but the members, whoever attends, it rotates among the team. So it may be somebody who's very strident about a point on the agenda, who's filled with angst or excitement that wants to discuss it. So they come in with the team's representative, as the team's representative, with their collective voice on
I
it.
gotta back you up for a sec, because I'm just wondering, what was it like for you and Larry and Kevin to be told by a 23-year-old, well, you can put your hand up, but don't think we're going to call on you? Like, what was that like for the 3 of you?
I can't speak for my brothers, but I can tell you it was a very nerve-wracking experience. Thank God I knew Jamie. I had known Jamie since she was probably 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, and I knew her reputation. People spoke highly of her. I believe she attended the same church. I knew she grew up in the same neighborhood, went to school with my children. I knew the quality of person that she was. But to have your company go down a path, a virgin path never traveled before, and give complete freedom to your employees was frightening. But Karen, there was another point. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired as a leader. I couldn't continue this. And if this was a chance to develop 9 more Jamies or 9 more Tims, I thought that was pretty exciting. So I also went into it with a little bit of a skepticism. Well, if I don't like it, I'm going to quit. I'm going to say it's not going to happen. So I retained veto power just because I'm an owner. Bang your fist on the table.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting to watch them act so mature, and they were so vested in what they did. First 10 minutes set the course. I knew that they could do this.
So even way back then, you could see the potential in them.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Everybody at the table, not just Tim and Jamie, everybody.
Yeah. It's really, it's remarkable. There are probably a lot of people listening thinking, it sounds almost impossible in some ways. So isn't it fascinating how this story involves you and your awareness that things couldn't go on, and that you were sick and tired of being sick and tired, and that they had the smarts and the courage to step up. It must have been terrifying in some ways for them too.
Yes, but let's not forget that they were young. They could walk out that door and go find any job. They were brilliant. They were educated. They were young, and they could go find places. In fact, I know Tim had a job offer, a tremendous job offer waiting for him. And I know Jamie had a great history already in business. So they could have left. It's either you do it this way or we're going. And they were very serious about it.
It's a pretty important part of this story, I think. When I was visiting, you said there's lots of stories in those beginning stages, the Good to Great Council, and you and Larry and Kevin sitting in the corner. You even showed me the corner, that there were many, many pivotal moments. And one of them in particular was when you talked about what happened during the recession, when the company, the business was facing really, really tough stuff. And you referred to Mari Carmen as the soul, I think you called her the soul of the company.
Yes.
And you pointed her out to me. What was that story? What happened that, from your perspective, made such a difference or contributed to the shift?
Well, it was October of 2010. We had a phenomenal year. And during our leadership meeting, I said, I think we ought to prepare to hand out a lot of bonuses this year, because everything that Tim and Jamie had led and the Good to Great Council had done had resulted in tremendous growth. 25 to 35% per annum growth, and it was just becoming very profitable. And Tim said, no, we're going into a terrible recession. And I said, I've been through 5 recessions as a business leader. I can handle this. He says, no, your father has had a recession like this, not you. And how prophetic he was. So that October, our Good to Great Council did planning for what would happen if we hit certain numbers. We hit those numbers on January 31st of 2011. And so the first step, by the way, the first step in October was my brothers and I had to take a 30% pay reduction just to show intent for the whole company. And I don't care who you are, 30% pay reduction hurts. And it hurt me, but the point was if I had to prove it first. So everybody in the company knew by the next morning our pay was reduced 30% in anticipation of this happening. So there was going to be a 10% salary reduction for all salaried employees, and we were going to lose a certain amount of hourly employees, part of which was in the culinary team. So January 31st, Tim said, today's the day. Our numbers are bad enough. We have to take the first step. We called the hourly team captains together in our operations room, and we said, today's the day we're going to reduce our workforce by, in Mari Carmen's area, it was 5 people. And Tim had also told me my rainy day funds were losing money, 18% interest, but it didn't register why at that time. So we said that we're going to reduce by 5 people based on productivity, not seniority. So it was really important to reward the people that were working hard, not just the people who have been there for a long period of time. So I left to tell the office that there were 10% salary reduction. We came back in the ops room and I said, okay, Mari, who are your 5 people? And Mari said, Tom, I have 2 questions. Are we a family? And we'd always preached family values. This is our family rules. This is how our family behaves. And I said, yes, I don't care if we're Walter, Velazquez, Rios, Vasquez, Pritchard, it doesn't make any difference. We're family. And then she said, are we going to survive? And that's a very poignant question to be asked by your employees. Are we going to survive? This is their future, their family's future. And I said, Mari, if the United States survives, we're going to survive because we had borrowed a lot of money, taken out lines of credit on our homes during the previous 60 days, so we would have cash reserves. I said, we'll survive, but we can't dip too long. And I said, why, Mari? And she said, well, our first core value is always moral, ethical, and legal, and part of ethics is the right to an implied or explicit contract, and the right not to injure anybody, including financially, psychologically, physically, emotionally. We get that from Immanuel Kant's interpretation of ethics. And she says, our family can't be hurt. We're not going to fire anybody. And if we survive, we need everybody here because everybody's important. We need everybody to become successful again. And I wanted to kill her. It turned bright red in fury, and I wanted to choke her. I was so mad because I loved her. I loved Mari. And if you met Mari, she's such a lovable, wonderful lady. And I thought, how could you betray me like this? And then I don't know if it was divine inspiration. I don't know what happened. But I asked her the famous Peter Drucker quote, "When in trouble, ask your frontline employees, if you have a question." So I said, Mari, what do you think we should do? And she repeated that. If we survive, we need everybody. And we've been trying to find jobs for the last 2 months in all these menial jobs, factories, et cetera, and no one can find a job. And we all went out and looked for jobs. So we're going to cut hours back. We'd like to cut our hours back to 25 hours apiece. And that'll save you 7 people in my area, not 5.
Wow. And
I went from anger to love like that.
you know what? Our time is almost up in this 15-minute segment. And that's just a taste of more stories, isn't it? Because there's a lot more where that came from.
Yes. And Mari was absolutely correct. She saved the company.
And she's the soul of the company to this day.
Yes, ma'am.
Huh. I like you calling me ma'am. It makes me feel quite important.
You are?
When we come back, Tom, in the next segment, we're going to talk about your personal journey. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And what it took for you as a leader to go on this adventure. So thank you for this conversation, and we'll see you back really soon.
Thank you for having me, Karen.